We've known for quite some time that President Trump is not a cookie-cutter conservative, but his recent rhetoric and even more so actions could signal that he's evolving, dare I say, into something slightly left of conservatism, Trump 2.0. Over the past week alone, President Trump has voiced his support for gun control measures, publicly dissed the NRA. Imposing trade tariffs was a big idea. Another one for this weekend. We're learning that deficits are going to indeed balloon as we continue to add more spending, but no real spending cuts. So is there a new Trump here? And for the long haul, what does it mean for his administration and the economy? Adrian Cohen is with us, syndicated columnist and Boston Herald radio host. John Burnett, New York GOP strategic advisor, and back with us, Katrina Pearson. All right, Katrina, Trump 2.0, is this a different Trump? And if so, what does it mean?
No, not at all, Charles. In fact, this is the same Trump that on the campaign trail, he promised to be flexible. He promised to hear all sides. He likes to make informed decisions, and he's done just that throughout the campaign, throughout the transition, and now in the White House. What you hear is a man who still to this day thinks out loud. He has a heart. He has compassion. He has thoughts. Most people are used to White Houses putting out talking points, and the media is so lazy they just go with the flow. But they can't do that in this case. The fact that the president thinks out loud, has opinions and thoughts, it forces people to think for themselves, independently, forces the press to do their job. But at the end of the day, people like myself, the people that support Donald Trump wholeheartedly, understand at the end of the day, when the policies go to the paper, he's going to be making the best decision for the American citizens. You know,
Adriana, some conservatives are saying, well, you know, if a president said, well, take your guns or take anyone's guns, even someone who may or may not be mentally stable, that violates, you know, one of the tenets of conservatism. You know, we know that, to Katrina's point, though, President Trump speaks from his heart. He's moved by images, particularly when it involves children. But that's just one instance this week where people say it wasn't a conservative comment.
Right, but I can tell you, Charles, as a mother myself, that, you know, we're failing as a nation if American children can't go to school without putting their lives at risk. So when President Trump made that controversial comment, like, let's take the guns now and do due process later, he wasn't talking about violating the Constitution per se. What he was getting at is a sense of urgency. We know when these mass shootings take place, there's copycat ones that can follow and do follow. And so he's trying to get ahead of it. He knows that sometimes with court orders, there's so much red tape and bureaucracy, it could take a very long time to actually get guns out of dangerous hands. And so that's where that comment came from. But I do want to say that there's 5 states in the United States that a court, a judge can order authorities to seize the guns from a mentally ill person or someone who's threatening violence. And there's legislation pending now to expand that provision to, you know, all 50 states. And so we'll see if that takes place or not.
Let me bring it back around, though, to President Trump. We should acknowledge that President Trump ran against the establishment. Right. So that meant the establishment's on both sides of the aisle. Right. And I think people forget that, even though he had an amazingly conservative track record the first year, by many measures, even more conservative than Ronald Reagan's first year, this is not a new Trump per se. This is the person that campaigned, that we saw on the campaign trail, isn't it?
Absolutely. The thing is that the president is making a valid attempt to balance gun rights as well as protect the Second Amendment. And he knows, and look at what's happening in the marketplace. CEOs are already making the decision, right? So now it's up to Congress to say, you know what, we don't have to socialize.
Well, what about tariffs? Let me ask you about that then. I mean, because conservatives are saying this is definitely against our orthodoxy. You'd never do a tariff no matter what.
You know, when you look at it, we are a Christian nation, but President Trump is tired of turning the other cheek when it comes to unfair trade. And we have to do something to protect American jobs, the American economy. We can't keep growing deficits, contributing to the defense of other nations without defending ourselves, both militarily and economically.
So, Katrina, again, I think people do need to be reminded again that President Trump ran against the quote-unquote establishment. So, you know, whenever Ben Sass, you know, has criticism of him, the same day that Chuck Schumer may have criticism of him, to a degree, it actually probably proves a point, doesn't it?
Well, it absolutely proves the point. It's exactly why he was able to defeat the Republican establishment and then the Democrat establishment, because he does have in mind the people of the United States. And to both my colleagues on this panel, This is exactly what's happening. He makes a statement. People have to think states are taking action, businesses are taking action. Whether or not there'll be federal action is we'll find out pretty soon.
Right.
But President Trump starts that discussion and gets things done.
And a better even example of that perhaps would be all of these bonuses. Remember, President Trump, his first week in office, he called corporate America to the White House and he shamed them in front of the world, and they got ahead of the curve. Right, Adriana?
Yeah, absolutely. And how many of them decided, like Apple, that they're going to start building plants and manufacturing here in the United States? So it's been fantastic results. He's a results-oriented president, and we're going to see more of that in this coming year.
Right, so Trump 2.0 might really be Trump 1.0. Ladies, gentlemen,
Yes,
thank you both.
absolutely.
Thank you all very much. All right, coming up, the S&P and NASDAQ actually ended